In this Domain Sherpa show, Profitable Flips, skilled domain name investors share all the details of how they bought low and sold high. On today's show, we're going to learn how a $120 domain name sold for $10,000 in less than 30 days. Stay tuned. I have 3 sponsor messages before we get into today's show. First, if you have a great domain name and nothing to show when people visit, you're missing out on potential advertising revenue, leads, and partnership opportunities. NicheWebsites.com can build you a site quickly with a price option to suit any need. But as their tagline says, they don't just build websites, they build businesses. NicheWebsites.com. Second, if you're buying or selling a domain name or portfolio and you want an estimate of its value, Estabot.com is the place to go. Just like you'd visit Zillow.com to get an estimate of a house value, Estabot.com provides key information about the most important statistics so you can make an informed decision based on data. Finally, whether you're buying, selling, brokering, or financing a domain name, you need an escrow company that's properly licensed, bonded, insured, and audited. That company is escrow.com, and they've been doing it since 1999. Escrow.com. It's about trust. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger, and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the website where you can learn how to become a successful domain name investor or entrepreneur directly from the experts. This is the Domain Sherpa show called Profitable Flips. In this show series, I invite domain name investors to share all the details of how they bought low and sold high, a methodology called value investing, where you buy assets that appear undervalued, but at a later date will be properly valued by the market. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Shane Bellone from Connecticut. Welcome to the show, Shane.
Thanks for having me.
I read about one of your sales on the discussion forum called NamePros.com. A user named David Walker posted about it. So I want to start the show with thanks to David for the lead and being able to invite you onto the show. Shane, what was the domain name that you recently sold?
It was itmagazine.com.
IT Magazine. So IT is an acronym for what?
Information technology.
Okay, so pretty massive space, information technology, and then magazine.com. How long ago was the sale?
It was in December, actually.
Okay, so not too long ago when we're airing this show. And what was the final sales price of itmagazine.com?
$10,000.
And so people want to know, if you sold high, what did you buy it for? Was it actually low?
I actually bought it for $120.
$120?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would say that's buying low. And so from the point that you bought it for $120 to the point that you sold it for $10,000, what was that time span in between?
It was actually 27 days.
Wow. That's fantastic, Shane. So this is the point in the show, Shane, where I'm going to pause the story before I get into all the nitty-gritty of asking you where you found the domain name for such a great steal, why nobody else thought it was worth more, how you were able to sell it. I like to understand a little bit about the background of the guest. What do you do for a living, Shane?
I'm actually a full-time student. And
excellent. Out in Connecticut?
Correct, at Eastern Connecticut State University. And I invest in domains part-time, and it's proving profitable.
Excellent. And we had mentioned in the pre-interview call that I used to live in Ridgefield, Connecticut, not too far from where you are. And just before this, we had mentioned that big winter storm that's going to pound the New England area is coming in. So hopefully we'll wrap up this interview before the storm starts to hit in mass.
Hopefully. It's already started.
And how long have you been in investing? You mentioned that you're doing it part-time.
I started in 2012. I believe it was August. And I was learning the ropes for the first year, doing a lot of reading, bought some awful names like most people do. Luckily, I only spent, a couple $100 learning what was bad, so my losses were low. Most of those names I immediately deleted once I did some more reading. And
so you didn't even wait for them to expire. You actually clicked delete and got rid of them.
Yeah, they were bad.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so 2012, you haven't been doing it that long. So what I'm going to do, we'll come back and we'll visit a little bit more about maybe some of the tips that you've learned along the way. But in IT Magazine, I had noticed that you sold it on Flippa.com. Flippa.com is a marketplace for primarily websites, but they've recently been selling a lot of domain names on Flippa. And it's a different type of clientele that's on Flippa than, say, on GoDaddy auctions or NameJet auctions. Do you agree with that, Shane?
Definitely.
Okay. And so when you posted it for sale on itmagazine.com, did you think that that the users of Flippa, people with accounts, thought it was a desirable domain name?
Honestly, I knew that Flippa is great for technology domains. I had no idea that they'd respond to a magazine domain, because honestly, the average range for magazine domains are about $500. The number one sale prior to this was yogamagazine.com for $10,000. So,
how did you determine that the average range of magazine domain names was $500?
I used namebio.com and I flipped through it and noticed a trend.
Yeah, so Yoga Magazine had the top and there wasn't much below that until you get to 500, and that's where most of them were.
Correct. I think the next highest was 3,000, maybe 3,500.
Mm-hmm. So an auction on Flippa is, if you sign up for an account, it's public domain, basically. You can go in there and you can watch, you can look at the number of bids that are coming in. What you can't see is how many people are interested in a domain name. It's what Flippa calls watchers of a domain name or a website. And you can click the watching button. Do you remember how many watchers were interested in itmagazine.com?
Well, I went back to check, and I can't give you an exact number because they reset the number of watchers and views, but I remember it being over 140, which is pretty substantial for an auction like that.
Yeah. So I have no idea if that's a lot or not a lot. I know you've sold other domain names on Flippa. Is that the highest number of watchers you've had on a domain name?
It is.
Okay. And from, talking to other people that use Flippa, is that one of the higher number of watched auctions that you know of, or?
Yes, it is. I mean, there's a few exceptions to the rule. Some of the extraordinary domains you come by, everybody watches just to see what the final sales price will be. Mm-hmm. But for an active auction, it's pretty substantial.
And how many total bids and how many bidders did you have? Do you remember?
Not offhand. It was, number of bidders was somewhere between 10 and 20. There wasn't all that many. And yeah.
Yeah. So when I went back and looked, I saw 86 bids from 17 bidders. I'm not sure, again, to your point, it seems like Flippa reset some of the numbers. Those look like they were the final numbers. So somewhere on that order of magnitude.
Correct. That sounds about right.
And so I want to know, before we even get into how you posted and what you did, how did you find such a great domain name for only $120?
Well, I'm actually an avid forum user. I spend a lot of time just browsing, and it's sometimes hard to navigate and find the gold among the garbage. Yeah. Because nobody can really say there isn't an overwhelming amount of bad domains on these forums. So what had happened was I saw the thread on DN Forum advertising 2 magazine domains, and one of them was IT Magazine. So I immediately messaged him, even though I assumed his asking price would be in the 4-figure range. His previous post suggested that he was looking for a $6,000 buy it now. That was over 2 or 3 posts over the years. And I messaged him anyway. Surprisingly, he got back to me with a $550 asking price. I informed him that the average magazine domain sold for $500, so I could not offer him that much. He replied back with a $380 bid. I asked if it received any traffic. He stated it did. In the same message, he said his final offer was $350. I replied back with a $100 offer. He came back at $150, and I raised my offer to $120. He accepted.
That's phenomenal, Shane. So, I love the fact that you took a domain name that was listed at $6,000 down to $500 just by talking about the data.
Hmm.
right? And did you actually even like pull out data from name bio and then put it into an email and say, here are the domains and the average asking price is 500? Did you just say that my research shows that the average magazine domain name gets 500?
I let him know that according to name bio, the average price was $500, and I'm not sure if he verified that or if he just took my word for it.
Well, he probably did. I think most domain investors are data oriented, and in when you have data right in front of you, it's hard to argue it. Yeah, you could do, what a lot of the big time investors do and say, well, whatever, that's my price. If you want it, you want it. But, a
Exactly.
lot of us are on these discussion forums because we need to move domain names because we have renewal fees and we don't often buy great domain names. So we might need the cash in order to
Exactly.
pay for them. So that's a pretty phenomenal negotiation that you got there, Shane. When you said $500, I'm like, how did Shane get it from $500 down to 120?
Yeah, it's a tactic I use a lot. I look for motivated sellers,
Yeah,
and sometimes it's hard to distinguish the difference, but
yeah.
you can tell by their response to your initial offers. I'm a chronic lowballer. I'll be the first to admit that. But you
And so
just
how many offers, how many lowball offers do you think you put out for every one that you get, like IT Magazine?
That's a hard question to answer. I've never really compiled a list,
Yeah,
but I would say probably 30% of the time it works. The other
yeah.
70 people just laugh at you.
Wow.
But the fact is, when you buy low, you have more margin for profit.
Right.
So it makes sense. Like you can go
Right.
off offering $1,000 offer. That's fine and dandy. But that's $500 you could have saved and potentially have made.
Yeah. And to be honest, to the prior seller, you didn't know that it was going to sell for what it sold for. You thought, what did you think that the market rate should be of IT Magazine?
Um, my estimate was $3,000 to $5,000,
Wow.
and that's
Because
what I
you
was saying.
knew where you're going to market it and you knew that it might go that high.
Yes,
Okay. And the previous owner didn't know that Flippa was a good place to sell technology related domain names.
evidently not.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So after you bought it for $120, did you do anything with it? Did you park it to look at traffic, to look at stats, anything like that?
Yes, I parked it for 2 or 3 days, and I just wanted a rough estimate of numbers because I've noticed on Flippa especially that those traffic stats are vital to an
Oh,
auction.
interesting. I have never thought about that before. Cool. So when you're entering the listing into Flippa for sale, there's a spot to put in number of visitors, number of page views.
Correct.
Okay. And even though you parked it and there was only one page that could be displayed, you still posted the numbers.
Correct.
And what was the general traffic on this domain?
About 150 a month. So it's
150 a
not
month.
substantial, but
Yeah.
great way to
But so basically every day you're getting about 3 visitors. I'm sorry, 5 visitors.
correct.
Okay. Not bad. All right. So people were typing in IT Magazine thinking that there was something there, and you had to park it in order to get that statistic. What's your favorite parking platform that you use to gather data?
Right now, I'm actually using Rook Media. I would like to test out Fabulous, but nobody's gotten back to me, quite honestly.
Yeah. Cool. I haven't tried Rook Media, so that's nice. And did you make any money while it was parked for 3 days, or?
I did not.
Yeah, no. All right. So you had mentioned that you sold it on Flippa and that you sold it there because you had realized that Flippa was a marketplace where IT, information technology related websites and domain names would do better. How do you know that Flippa is a website that a name like IT Magazine would do better on?
Honestly, I've been following Flippa for the entire 3 years that I've been in this business. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't necessarily say my first year was business, but for the entire time I've been domaining, I followed it, and I've noticed a huge trend in just technology domains. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it fits the user base because a lot of domainers in general are up to date on technology. Um, it's just one of the things they follow. I mean, that's not representative of everybody, but I think the vast majority does.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so when you go to Flippa and you sign into your account, and if you don't have an account, you can sign up for free, and you want to list a domain name, what are the general fields that you need to populate in order to list it?
Well, first you enter the domain name. Following that, I believe it's, let's see, domain. I'm
No worries.
looking out here.
There's and I did it earlier today. I saw there was like a tagline and then a description.
Correct.
And they seem about this. The tagline, I guess, is a short version.
Yes. Okay. So there's a tagline, a summary, and then your description.
Oh, that's what it was. Like, what's the difference between the tagline and the summary?
I think it's a place to just recap the entire description. For me, it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like the tagline is sufficient to draw in users because that's what's seen on the front page if you make it there, or from the domain drop-down menu. That's what all the users see, so you got to make that compelling.
Yeah.
From what I've noticed about the summary, you should knock off a few stats, something to drag them in to read your long description, because a lot of users write long descriptions. That's not.
Yeah, I've read some real novels in the description field before.
It's true.
Yeah.
Love to fill that up with data. I think that distracts from the actual auction personally. I try to keep it short and sweet and show how this domain could possibly make money.
Yep.
But other than that, that's
okay. And I noticed that when I went through the process, just to better understand it so I can ask you about it, you can set a domain auction for between 3 and 30 days in length. Do you remember how long you set your auction for?
I set mine for 30 days.
And why was that?
It gives you the maximum amount of exposure. I found that the first 7 days are critical because you want to get as many bids as possible to climb up to the most active page. Once you're on the most active page, it's essentially free advertising because that's where the majority of people go. They want to see what's trending, what people are interested in, and they bid accordingly. So
the number of bids controls how active it is. What if, like, your domain would have gone up to $3,000 with just one bid right off the bat? Would that take it to the most active, or it's actually controlled by the number of bids? Do you know?
It's controlled by the number of bids.
Okay. So you want to get onto the most active because then more people will discover it when they click most active domain auctions.
Correct.
Got it. And then the last step, I believe, before you finish up your listing is and you can list a domain name for $9. That's the base fee.
Correct.
And then I believe they charge a success fee as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it's
10%, is that right?
10%.
And are you a super seller on Flippa?
I just became one, yes.
Oh, congrats.
Thanks.
How do you become a super seller?
Well, it's about a succession of successful sales. Like 7 days after I initially sold IT Magazine, I listed hackermagazine.com. That sold for $6,000 in 4 hours. Unfortunately,
Did somebody click the buy it now button and buy it?
Correct.
Congrats.
Well, unfortunately, the buyer failed to pay. So,
Bummer.
yeah.
All right, I'm going to come back to Hacker Magazine and ask you about that because I don't want the world to sound too rosy. It's like simple to buy low and sell high. It's not simple, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah, so, okay, so you paid $9 for the domain listing, and then you pay a 10% success fee if the domain doesn't sell, i.e. it doesn't hit the reserve, or, you know, a buyer backs out, for example. You don't pay that 10%. But they do offer some upgrade options. Like I saw, there's a premium option and an ultra premium option. The premium option is $249 and the ultra premium is $349, and they give you extra visibility. Did you purchase either of those?
I did. I used the ultra premium one. It was $349, which put me at a total of, $349 plus $120 is still nothing.
Well, plus $9 to list it.
The $349 includes the $9.
It. Oh, okay. Great. So $349. You know, when you got $120 into the domain name, doesn't that make you think twice about promoting it for $349?
Um, Initially, I was hesitant, but I spoke with one of my friends, Ali, and he had mentioned you just have to believe in your names. And that really resonated with me. I was like, all right, I'll go for this, see what happens. And to my surprise, it worked.
Wow. Yeah. And that's Ollie Zandy, who has been on the show in the past on a Domain Sherpa review, and he is going to be coming on the show in a couple of weeks as well to talk about Flippa in more detail and how to be an effective seller there.
Oh, excellent.
Shane, when you created this listing, did you put a reserve price, a minimum price that the auction must hit in order for you to sell it?
I did not.
You did not.
No.
So whatever it sells for, you were going to take.
Yes, that is correct.
So somebody could have bid $1 and you could have been like out $3.49 plus your $1 plus 10%, another 10 cents for their success fee.
Yes, that is correct. But that actually goes back to my strategy of accumulating bids at the beginning. I find no reserves are a little bit more effective to get you onto the most active page. Rarely do you see an auction with a reserve make it that far.
Well, that's interesting. Okay. So, I'd still be nervous that nobody would discover it and that it wouldn't make it to the most active and then it would sell for under its value. In this case, you got a great deal on it, but I don't know. Were you nervous?
I was anxious. I always get anxious during auctions simply because I want to hit refresh 24/7.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to overcome, especially when you first start selling. It's a rush, though.
Yeah.
I must admit. Like, you just watch it increase, and you're just like, wow.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to ask you how it increased. But the one last thing I wanted to ask you about your listing was that the graphic associated with your auction was really cool. It was, and I've actually took a snapshot of the page. I'm not sure if it's against Flippa rules, but I'm going to post it below and hopefully they'll be okay with it. Because I like how you worded everything. I wanted to record it in time. The icon was a laptop on its side, and then this side of it was a magazine. So it was sort of a laptop flowing into a magazine. It was really cool.
That is correct.
Did you create the graphic or pay for somebody to create the graphic for you?
Actually, that was courtesy of Ali.
Ali created it for you for free?
He
or
did.
You paid him for it?
No, he created it for free. He wanted to help me out with my first no reserve auction. Well, not my first, but the one I was really going for.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was really nice of him.
It was. He's a great
How much would you expect to pay for a graphic that's that cool, that's representative of the domain name?
I would probably say somewhere between $30 and $50, depending on the length of time it takes someone to create it.
Yeah.
He just kind of hit the nail on the head the first time. So
well, that was very nice of Ollie, and that saved you, in this first big auction of yours that you didn't know how it was going to go.
Exactly.
So, how did the auction proceed over time? How long did it take you to get your first bid in, which you were clicking refresh on over and over again to see when it was going to come in, I'm sure?
Well, the first bid was pretty quick because it showed up on the first page. It started really strongly and almost immediately pushed me to the top of the most active page.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there was a lull around the third week at $3,750. And that's actually when I began negotiating for the closing price.
Okay, so let me pause it there and ask you. You had the auction up for. You said it lulled in 3 weeks after posting it.
About that, yes.
About 3 weeks. Three weeks of the 4-week timeline. At any point in the 4 weeks, in the 30 days that was online in auction, did you do any outreach to end users, people that may want to make a business out of this domain name in the publishing space, for instance?
I'm honestly terrible at outbound. It's just something that doesn't interest me. Auctions are way more exciting, so that's the direction I'm taking my business.
Gotcha. All right. So even though you don't do outreach and you didn't reach out to, Computer World, I don't even know if Computer World's in print anymore, or any of those printed periodicals to ask them if they'd want a generic category killer domain name like IT Magazine, I did see you post the sale, the auction on Name Pros in their marketplace, external sales, and everything else sort of section where you can announce auctions. Do you think, actually, I saw you post it twice. Do you think that posting it on a discussion forum like Name Pros helped in generating interest, watchers for it?
I actually posted on both Name Pros and DN Forum. I'm not sure either of them tremendously impacted the sales price, mostly because resellers aren't going to pay $10,000 for a domain. They just won't. Maybe 500 to 1,000 helped boost me a little bit.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't think a reseller would have much upside.
Right. Yeah, good point. Today, when you're posting domain names on Flippa, a month later after this sale, are you still posting your domains for sale in DN Forum and Name Pros to generate reseller interest, or have you stopped doing that tactic?
Normally I do. Lately I have not.
Okay. All right. And I noticed that you don't list a price because it's at auction. There's no reason to list a price. People can just click through and look at it, right?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. So 3 weeks into the 30-day auction, you said you hit a $3,750 lull, meaning it hit that auction price and then there wasn't very much activity after that. So you started negotiations. What does that mean that you started to negotiate with buyers?
Well, I had two people reach out to me. Initially, I started at $15,000 because why not? There was no real rhyme or reason to it.
So they reached out to you. How and what did they say to you?
You can private message someone through the Flippa system.
Okay.
And two of them, one being the buyer and another one being a separate party, both asked me if I would put up a buy it now or a bin. And I said, I would consider $15,000. And initially one of them said that was way too high. And I said, all right, have fun bidding.
Which one said that was too high? Was that the final buyer?
No, that was a separate
It was the other one.
person. Correct.
Okay. And what did the final buyer respond to you when you said 15,000, buy it now?
Well, he said he would offer $5,000. I informed him that I previously had a higher offer because I had a $6,000 offer right before that.
Oh, wow.
That was actually a third person. I completely forgot about that for a second.
Okay.
I instructed him to place a bid and wished him luck. He literally responded with $8,000.
$8,000? Like, that's a pretty good offer, Shane.
It is. I again declined his offer and made another counter at $15,000.
But you didn't come down. He came up 3,000. You didn't come down at all.
No.
That seem fair?
Life isn't fair always. This is negotiating. You gotta stay firm.
All right.
So we went.
And what was his response to that?
Well, we had a little back and forth. He was just like, he also literally said, "I don't get you, dude." And basically I retorted with, well, make me another offer. And he came back with $9,500. And he said, final offer, that's it. So I asked him again if he could come up to $10,000. He replied with $9,750. I was like, all right, I'll put a bin up for $10,000. You can grab it or you can let it slip for $250. And then 5 minutes later, he purchased it.
So when I went back and looked at the bidding history of this, it says bidder one offered $10,000, but then there's some red writing that says that bidder one was suspended.
Yes, that is correct. He was actually the person who bought Hacker Magazine within 4 hours because I tried to upsell him after the $10,000 sale. And
okay, so after you said 10,000, here's the buy it now. He says, he clicked I'll buy it, or you responded back via private message PM that you'll throw in this domain name if he bought it for 10,000.
No, he bought it.
Okay.
And then separately, I tried to sell him Hacker.
Oh, okay.
And we eventually reached the $6,000 sales price, and he failed to pay, so he ultimately got suspended for that.
Quick break from 3 sponsors of today's show. First, Are you tired of being upsold and cross-sold when you buy or renew a domain? Then try the newest registrar being built from the ground up with a beautiful interface, competitive pricing, and 24/7 support. Uniregistry.com will surprise and delight you. The right domain can change your life. Uniregistry.com. Second, investing in Chinese domains is crazy hard without expert native language advice. Now, as a service to the Western domainer community, TLD Registry offers ChineseLandRush.com. Using ChineseLandRush.com will help you invest in Chinese domains with confidence and without knowing a word of Chinese. Finally, if you're buying a domain name from a private party and want to know what else they own, DomainIQ.com is the tool you should be using. View their entire portfolio, filter by Esterbot value, and be a better investor. $49.95 for 250 queries per month. Visit DomainIQ.com/portfolio to learn more. So this guy said he was going to buy ITMagazine.com for $10,000, Hacker Magazine for $6,000, failed to pay on both and got banned from the Flippa system.
No, he actually paid for IT Magazine.
Oh.
Failed to pay for Hacker Magazine.
Boy, that's weird, right?
It's very weird because he actually listed his auction, which was making between $30,000 to $50,000 a month in AdSense revenue. And that never gained traction because he didn't substantiate his statistics.
Yeah.
I think he ran out of some money and was trying to sell his website for a good sum and then pay me. Because I waited about 3 weeks for him to pay. I was like, you know what? I'll give this guy the benefit of the doubt. He just gave me 10 grand.
On Hacker Magazine. Yeah, you waited 3 weeks on Hacker Magazine.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow, that's weird. And usually when I hear people say that they make $30,000 to $50,000 a month on AdSense, I call BS because I know how crappy AdSense, revenue is. So, but maybe.
Who knows?
I've seen stranger. Okay, so it actually did sell in negotiation because you set a buy it now price. I saw in the comments, and there's a string of comments whenever people post publicly, they can ask a question, they can, you can post an answer. You wrote at one point, would anyone be interested in a BIN, in a buy it now bin? Was that after these two private messages came in and said, what's the buy it now price?
That was prior to it. I was trying to make some interest and get some conversations going.
Yeah. And did that work?
No.
I thought, oh, here's an interesting tactic. Maybe, writing what you're thinking might be useful in generating more conversations and interest on the auction, but it wasn't useful.
No, the reason I did that is because the comments get sent to everybody's email and they can view them there. And I had a substantial number of viewers at that point, or watchers, excuse me. So I knew it would get blasted to everybody's email. But it really didn't generate any interest. I found that there's a better strategy if you message the people, whoever's bid already, and ask them, what are your development plans? What do you plan to do with the domain? Just start a conversation. And once you get an idea of what they want and how badly they want it, you can kind of initiate a negotiation or hopefully get them to make an offer first. Because my domain sales strategy is purely based on someone else making the first offer. I never want to say, okay, I want $10,000 for it. Because then they come back with a lower offer and you're forced to come down. If they say $5,000, you say $10,000, then they're forced to come up. So ultimately you get more money for it in the long run unless you can afford to turn down a $7,500 offer because they won't come up another $2,500.
Yeah. What if they come in with a $100 first offer?
Funny enough, I had a $10 offer on GoDaddy auctions and it turned into a $1,000 sale.
Really?
So I have a firm belief, never ignore anybody.
And Jeff Gabriel at NameFest, who's the vice president of sales at Domain Name Sales, Frank Schilling's organization, says the exact same thing. But I'm just like a lot of other people. I have my entire portfolio, investment portfolio listed on, say, Flippa domains, and I get these emails saying, I'll offer you $1 for your domain name or $10 for your domain name. And I'm like, that's like a $50,000 domain name. I don't think I could take that, but maybe it's I have plenty of domain names that aren't worth more than $100, so maybe I should start negotiating.
Give it a shot. I was about to
Yeah,
drop that name, so
yeah. All right, so that's a good tip. When I view your profile on Flippa, Shane, I see 8 transactions totaling, $17,000, $18,000. How important is it to having closed transactions and an amount of, things sold to selling more domain names? Do you think it's useful, or can I, with a brand new, you know, word underneath my name, just as effectively sell as you?
I don't think it's just as effective. I actually believe that the more sales you have, the more feedback you've received, the more likely you are to get a higher price for your domain or website. It's no different than being on DN Forum or Name Pros. I mean, you need to establish some feedback. Otherwise, there's no trust, especially
Yeah.
when you can. There's ways to get around the system if you really want to scam somebody, and it would tie up people's money for a long period of time. So I think that there's a huge trust component.
Hmm. Okay. And yeah, I could see that. It led more credibility. Somebody looks at you as an expert. So if you're asking more, maybe it's worth that much because you've sold on Flippa before and you know the marketplace.
Exactly.
When you agreed with the buyer that it was going to be $10,000, how was the Flippa process for executing for them? Did you use their escrow service or did you use escrow.com?
I used their escrow service. This is when it was
You,
still in beta, and it was not fun. It's improved since, but at that time it took 6 or 7 days to hit their vault.
hmm,
And then from there, it took probably another 5 days to hit my account. They've since improved, so I can't knock Flippa for that.
yeah.
I had a buyer pay, and 2 hours later, it was in their vault.
Oh, wow.
So it's improved substantially, but my initial impression was
Yeah.
not good.
And so now, do you still use the Flippa escrow, or I know they offer an option for escrow.com as well, right?
They do, but the Flippa escrow is actually built in now,
Ah,
so you can't unclick it.
gotcha.
And buyers prefer that because it's free.
Oh, okay. I got it.
You're
All right.
you're kind of stuck.
You're sort of stuck, but at least it's getting better.
It is definitely.
Knowing what you know now, Shane, hindsight's always 2020. Was this an ideal transaction from a buy-sell perspective, or would you have gone back and done anything differently on anywhere from the point where you bought the domain name to the point where you sold it?
Well, now that I know I had two $10,000 offers. Oh, I forgot to mention that actually.
What was that?
The person who initially said it was too high for them came back and gave me a backup offer of $10,000 if the sale fell through.
So you had put the $10,000 buy it now price. Bidder number one clicked, I will buy it. You went, it was a closed transaction, you were funding, and then another bidder reached out to you via private messaging, I guess, and said,
Correct.
I have another $10,000 offer if that one falls through.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So I kept him up to date, and he was great.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So do you think you could have played them off each other better somehow in order to get a higher bid?
I try not to think about it, but now that I know, I think the auction could have run a little bit higher.
Yeah.
It would have been interesting to watch two people duke it out. And the second thing I would have done differently is sold it for $10,001. I want to be number one in the magazine sale. Instead, I'm
Yeah.
tied first. So, you live and you learn.
You live and you learn. What other domain names do you currently have for sale that are similar to IT Magazine in quality?
Well, I currently have two no reserve auctions running. The domains are tablets.org
Oh, interesting.
and hackermagazine.com. That also comes with hackermag.com, plus all the other top level domains.
Wow. All right. Hackermagazine.com, which you had previously sold for $6,000, but the buyer backed out. And then tablets.org, another great one. I know tablets.com has been on the market for a while. Are you getting a lot of action on tablets.org and hackermagazine.com?
I am. There's, I believe, 70-something bids on tablets.
Wow.
It's at 905 last I checked. But like I said, that's pushed me right up the most active page. So now I don't have to do any of the $49 upgrades that gets you to the front page, because I did that up front, and now I'm reaping the rewards.
So wait a second. So on tablets.org, you paid for the $249 upgraded option or the $349 upgraded option?
The $249.
$249. So you didn't do the ultra premium, you just did the premium.
Correct.
But because it got so many bids to begin with, it bumped you up to the most active page, which is, I guess, one of the benefits you pay with the ultra premium listing.
Correct.
Okay.
I decided to try this one out and see if I had the same results, because it's all about testing. I mean, with tablets.org, that's a risk.
Yeah.
But you got to give it a shot.
Sure. Great. Well, I'd love to know what you paid for tablets.org and hackermagazine.com, but I'm actually going to wait until those close. One, because I don't want to jinx them, and two, because, you know, we know you probably bought them less than what you're selling for, and people can come back and see if you're invited back again after those sales. I did look at your listings on Flippa. I can click on your profile and then look at other listings and see what you've sold. And I did see that you sold SEMmagazine.com. SEM is an acronym for search engine marketing, an area that I like to specify in, and I've got to specialize in, and I have a portfolio of SEO-related domain names. I thought about buying that one from you, Shane. I saw it sold for $355. Were you happy with that sale?
No, I took a loss on it.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it was small, and that's the business. You gotta... The key is to make more than you lose. Yeah. That's all I've learned.
So you took a loss on the domain name from what it sold for to what you bought it for, or when you add in, you know, the upgraded things that you had, you took a loss, or both?
I did the $349 upgrade, which put me over the top.
Oh, all right. I also noticed another one. I'm sorry to dig up all this trash, Shane. You sold presidential-campaign.com for $13.
Yes.
Was that? I think that was one of your earlier ones.
It actually wasn't that long ago. I accidentally won it. I was testing out, Phoenix.com.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, let's see what this goes for. I figured there'd be at least one bidder in it. Because I'd like to track hyphenated domains, because sometimes they sell for obnoxious amounts of money.
Yeah.
This one did not, and I ended up with it. So I didn't do any upgrades, paid the $9 listing, made a whopping $4, and celebrated.
Nice. Do you sell any domain names on any other marketplaces, or are you specializing on Flippa.com right now?
I'm trying to specialize on Flippa because it's a platform I'm familiar with. Yeah. I've noticed GoDaddy Auctions does extremely well for certain things and for some people.
Yeah.
Namejet, for example, does great in three-letter.coms. They go for wildly high prices. But I think there's a benefit to each one of the platforms, and you really got to target which one you want for that specific domain.
Yeah, great advice. Any final thoughts on Flippa or domain names? Any tips for users that are just getting started like you did back in 2012?
Read. There's a wealth of knowledge out there. And also, don't get upset when your names are awful, because they're going to be awful when you first start. And one other thing I would add in is, don't go out and spend $3,000 when you're just starting. $4,000,
What would you set your cap at if you're just starting out?
$500.
$500.
You're most likely going to lose it. One of the things I had to learn is, personally, I don't hand register anything. It doesn't work for me. Some people do great with it, but for me, I've always lost. But you go into the auctions, they can go for thousands of dollars. And if you don't know what you're doing and you buy obscure-auctions.net, you're not going to make any money.
Yeah.
So just
great tips. If you have follow-on questions for Shane that I didn't ask him, please post them in the comments below this video, and I'll ask Shane to come back and answer as many as he can. Shane, I always encourage people watching shows like yours right now to get out from behind their computer, to reach out to other people, to go onto discussion forums, to interact, to learn. Business is done, I've found, through relationships. Clearly I reached out to you. I think you're heck of a nice guy. I'm glad I know you now in the marketplace, and I can't wait to meet you in person at a conference in the future. Hopefully, we'll be funded by your sales this year, so you can go to a conference. But the easiest way that I recommend to people to start making connections is to post a simple comment below a video. All you have to do is say, "Thanks, Shane," or "I appreciate you telling your story because of something." But the most important part is just reaching out and saying something to begin with. So I'm going to be the first to say thanks, Shane. Shane Bellone, thanks for coming on the Domain Sherpa show, sharing your story about a fantastic domain name flip, and thanks for being a Domain Sherpa for others.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.